You don't scream. That would be the fastest way to make everyone suspicious. Instead, you swallow. The wine burns all the way down. Every eye in the royal dining hall stays fixed on you. The king doesn't touch his own cup. Not yet. First, he watches you. Then the queen watches you. Then the guards. Then the servants pretending not to watch. For a few impossibly long seconds, your heartbeat is louder than the musicians. Nothing happens. So the king smiles, lifts the very same cup, and drinks. You just saved his life. Or maybe you just proved someone failed to kill him today. Either way, your dinner is going to be very stressful. Because tomorrow, you'll have to do it all over again. You weren't born into this job. Nobody dreams of becoming the person who eats poison for a living. As a child, your world is much smaller. A little village, a muddy road, a vegetable patch that never grows quite enough. Your mother always tastes the stew before serving it. Not because she's worried about poison, because wild mushrooms sometimes lie. You learn early that food can be dangerous long before it becomes political. Most meals end with everyone still breathing. People call that success. Then one winter, your father doesn't come home. A fever sweeps through nearby villages. It takes farmers, blacksmiths, children, and eventually him. Life moves on because it has to. The fields don't wait for grief. Neither does hunger. So by the time you're 12, you're already working in the kitchens of a local nobleman's estate. Not cooking. Mostly cleaning. Scrubbing pots blackened by endless fires. Carrying buckets heavy enough to make your shoulders ache. Trying very hard not to break expensive plates. Because broken pottery can usually be replaced. Kitchen boys cannot. Still, it's better than starving. And kitchens have one incredible advantage. You always know what tomorrow smells like. Fresh bread, roasted pheasant, boiled onions, sometimes honey, sometimes imported spices you've never even heard of. You never get to eat much of it. But smelling a feast is strangely comforting. Until one afternoon, everything changes. A visiting lord collapses halfway through dinner. His face turns pale. His hands shake. Within minutes, the dining hall explodes into chaos. Guards lock every door. Servants are searched. Cooks are dragged away for questioning. Nobody knows whether the man is sick or poisoned. You stand frozen, holding a wooden bowl, wondering if you'll ever leave this room again. Then an old physician points directly at you. That boy. He hasn't eaten yet. The entire hall turns. Someone places a silver spoon into your trembling hand. Feed him first. Your life as a royal food taster has just begun. The first spoonful is hot enough to burn your tongue. You barely notice. Everyone is too busy watching your face. You chew, swallow. Wait, nothing. The physician nods once. Only then does the sick nobleman take another bite. He vomits almost immediately. The room erupts again. Not poison, spoiled meat. The cook keeps his head. Barely. You somehow become the boy who didn't panic. Funny how careers begin. Not with talent, with terrible timing. The following week, the steward summons you. He isn't smiling. That usually means promotion. Or punishment. Sometimes both. You have steady hands, he says. And people trust what they see. You don't understand why that matters. Not yet. He leads you through corridors you've never been allowed to enter. The walls become cleaner. The candles brighter. The servants quieter. Even the air smells different. Less smoke. More beeswax and polished wood. You arrive outside a pair of enormous oak doors. Beyond them, the royal kitchens. Compared with the place you came from, this isn't a kitchen. It's a factory fueled by fire. Dozens of cooks shout over boiling pots. Bakers wrestle with mountains of dough. Butchers carry entire sides of beef across the floor. Young servants sprint between stations like ants trying to outrun rain. One mistake, and dinner for hundreds falls apart. Modern restaurant managers would probably resign before lunchtime. An older man notices you staring. He wears a simple linen apron. No jewelry. No fancy robes. Yet everyone instinctively steps aside when he walks past. That's how you recognize the real authority. Not by the crown. By who controls dinner. He is the master cook. You'll stay with me, he says. You'll learn every ingredient before you ever taste one. The lessons begin immediately. Fresh herbs. Old herbs. Good vinegar. Bad vinegar. Honey that came from flowers. Honey stretched with cheap syrup. Fish that died this morning. Fish that died yesterday. The difference can be the distance between a compliment and a funeral. Then come the cups. Every goblet is inspected. Every pitcher is sealed. Every barrel is recorded. Wine rarely arrives directly from the cellar to the king. Too many hands touch it first. Too many opportunities. You start noticing something unsettling. Nobody ever says the word poison out loud. They prefer softer phrases. An unfortunate accident. A suspicious illness. A regrettable meal. It's amazing how polite people become when discussing murder. Nah. Weeks turn into months. You learn the routine. Breakfast first. Taste. Wait. Then the royal family eats. Midday feast. Taste. Wait again. Evening banquet. Taste. Wait. Some days you sample 20 different dishes. Roasted goose. Creamy pottage. Sweet figs. Cheese. Wine. Ale. Sauces rich enough to hide almost anything, including danger. The waiting becomes harder than the eating. Every swallow starts a silent countdown. 1 minute. 3. 5. Your body becomes a clock everyone else trusts. If you're still standing, they begin serving the next course. If not, well, there are always more servants. One evening, just as the king reaches for a steaming bowl of stew, a messenger bursts into the hall, breathless, covered in mud. He whispers something into the captain of the guard's ear. The captain's expression changes instantly. His hand moves to his sword. Then, without warning, every plate on the royal table is taken away, including the one you've already tasted. Someone somewhere has confessed that tonight's banquet was never meant to reach the king. The dining hall empties in seconds. Guests are escorted away. Musicians stop playing mid-song. Even the dogs are dragged outside. Only a handful of people remain. The king, his closest guards, the royal physician, the master cook, and you. For the first time, you realize something unsettling. When food becomes a weapon, everyone in the kitchen becomes a suspect. The captain orders every ingredient brought forward. Flour, salt, wine, butter. Even the firewood is inspected. The physician scratches tiny samples onto polished silver needles, watching for strange stains. Others sniff the wine, break open loaves of bread, taste sauces one after another. Hours pass. Nothing. No obvious poison. No hidden powder. No mysterious bottle. Eventually, the messenger admits the confession came from a frightened stable boy. He overheard 2 drunken servants claiming the king would never see tomorrow. That was enough to trigger panic. Not proof, just fear. The banquet is canceled anyway. No one complains. Some meals simply aren't worth finishing. The next morning, the master cook hands you a small leather pouch. Inside are dried leaves, bitter roots, and tiny glass jars. You'll carry these from now on. You stare at them. They're not antidotes, he says before you can ask. I wish they were. He shows you how to crush herbs between your fingers, how to smell vinegar that's gone wrong, how certain poisonous plants leave an oily shine when cut, how spoiled almonds can sometimes hide a scent that doesn't belong. You quickly discover an uncomfortable truth. There is no magical test, no miracle stone, no universal cure. Your greatest protection isn't medicine. It's suspicion. Every unfamiliar flavor, every unexpected smell, every meal prepared by unfamiliar hands. You learn to notice them all, because missing one detail could become your last mistake. Weeks later, the fear inside you changes. You no longer flinch before every bite. You simply observe. The king notices. One afternoon after another uneventful meal, he looks at you for a long moment. Then he gives a small nod. No applause, no reward. Just a silent acknowledgement. Strangely, it feels worth more than gold. For the first time since entering the palace, you think maybe you'll survive this job. Unfortunately, the palace has other plans. By spring, you've tasted so many meals. You stop remembering what hunger feels like. Every dish belongs to someone else. You simply borrow the first bite, then give it back. If your heart keeps beating, the palace settles into a rhythm. Breakfast. Wait. Lunch. Wait. Banquet. Wait. Some days nothing happens. Those are your favorite days. Because the safest meal is the one nobody remembers. Then one afternoon, the master cook quietly changes the order. You notice immediately. The king's wine arrives before the bread. That never happens. You glance toward him. He gives the smallest shake of his head. Don't ask. Just drink. You lift the goblet. The wine tastes different. Not bitter. Not sour. Just wrong. Almost too smooth. As if someone tried very hard to make it taste ordinary. You swallow anyway. The hall falls silent. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Nothing. The king drinks next. Dinner continues. No one says a word. Later that night, the master cook finally speaks. You noticed? You nod. It came from a new vineyard. So why did you let me drink it? He looks at you for a long time. Because someday, he says quietly, the poison won't announce itself. The lesson changes you. From then on, you stop trusting familiar things. A favorite recipe, a trusted servant, even the king's oldest friends. Anyone can carry a tray. Anyone can refill a cup. Poison doesn't need an army. Sometimes, it only needs one person having a very bad idea. Human resources would have called this an impossible workplace. 3 years pass. You're no longer the frightened kitchen boy everyone ignored. New servants ask your opinion before serving a dish. Guards recognize you by name. Even visiting nobles know who you are. The king's taster. It's an odd kind of fame. People smile when they meet you, then instinctively let you eat first. You can't even blame them. You'd do exactly the same. One evening, the palace hosts a magnificent feast. Foreign ambassadors arrive carrying silk spices, rare fruits, and barrels of expensive wine. The tables overflow. Roasted peacocks, venison glazed with honey, fresh figs from distant lands, enough food to feed your childhood village for weeks. The king seems unusually cheerful. Everyone raises their cups. So do you. As always, you're the first to drink. This time, before you can lower the goblet, you feel something. Not pain, not yet. Just a strange warmth spreading through your throat. The royal physician is already staring at you. He saw it too. And suddenly, the entire banquet freezes. The warmth spreads slowly. Too slowly. That somehow makes it worse. You set the goblet down before your fingers forget how to hold it. Nobody speaks. The king doesn't move. Neither do the ambassadors. Every pair of eyes is fixed on you. The physician steps forward. Sit. You don't argue. He checks your pulse, looks into your eyes, then hands you a cup filled with something so bitter it feels like punishment. Drink. You obey. Moments later, your stomach twists. You barely make it outside the hall before you collapse to your knees. Everything you ate comes back up, again and again. By the time the spasms finally stop, your entire body is shaking. The physician kneels beside you. If that was poison, he says quietly, it wasn't enough to kill, but it was enough to test us. The palace doesn't sleep that night. Every servant is questioned. Every barrel of wine is traced back through merchants' wagons and warehouses. The ambassador who brought the gift swears his own family drank from the same shipment. His servants repeat the story. None of them appear to be lying. Days pass. No culprit is found. No confession arrives. The official record simply calls it a suspicious incident. You hate those words. They leave too much unfinished. Someone tried. Someone failed. Someone walked away. And life inside the palace continues as if nothing happened. That might be the most frightening part. After that night, the king changes. Not in public. He still laughs during feasts. Still greets foreign guests with a smile. But you've learned where to look. He watches every hand that reaches near his cup. Every unfamiliar servant. Every last-minute change to the menu. Trust becomes another luxury reserved for kings. One evening after a quiet supper, he asks you to remain. The hall empties. Only the fire crackles. You know, he says, turning the empty goblet in his hand, people think my guards keep me alive. He looks at you. They're wrong. For a moment, you forget he's the king. He sounds almost tired. You've swallowed years of fear that were meant for me. There's no grand reward, no chest of gold. He simply places a small silver ring in your palm. Not expensive, not ceremonial. Just something from his own hand. You slip it onto your finger. It fits perfectly. And somehow, it weighs more than armor ever could. Because for the first time, you realize this dangerous job has quietly become something else. It isn't just about surviving. It's about protecting a man whose enemies are growing bolder every year. The years keep moving. Kings grow older. Children become princes. Young servants become gray-haired stewards. And somehow, you're still taking the first bite. Not because you're fearless. You've simply learned that courage often looks exactly like routine. One spoonful, one sip, one silent minute. Then another day begins. The following winter, a familiar face disappears. The master cook. The man who taught you to trust your senses more than your confidence. His hands have become too stiff to hold a knife. His eyesight isn't what it used to be. Before leaving the palace, he presses a worn wooden tasting spoon into your hand. I've carried this for 30 years. You turn it over. It's smooth from decades of use, scarred by fire, darkened by soup sauces and wine. It won't protect you, he says with a faint smile, but it might remind you to slow down. Then he's gone. No ceremony, no statues, just another servant quietly leaving the place that never stops moving. History is full of famous kings. It rarely remembers the people who made sure they lived long enough to become famous. By now, you're training a boy who reminds you of yourself. Too curious, too eager, too confident. He asks the same question you once asked. Were you ever afraid? You almost laugh. Every single day, he waits for something wiser, something inspiring. Instead, you hand him a bowl. Taste it? He does. Then immediately looks at you. Now what? Now we wait. He quickly discovers that's the hardest part of the job. Not eating. Waiting to learn whether that bite changed your future. One quiet evening. There's no banquet, no ambassadors, no whispered warnings. Just a simple meal. Bread, roasted chicken, a cup of wine. You taste everything. As always, nothing happens. The king eats, finishes. Then before leaving the hall, he pauses beside your chair. You've served me longer than many of my soldiers. He places a weathered hand on your shoulder. I hope one day someone does for you what you've done for me. It's an odd blessing. Not wealth, not titles, simply the hope that someone else will choose your life before their own. Years later, you no longer climb palace stairs as quickly. Your hands shake just enough for people to notice. So one morning, you quietly place the old wooden spoon into your apprentice's hand. It fits him perfectly, exactly as it once fit you. He walks toward the royal table. You remain behind. For the first time in decades, someone else drinks first. You find yourself holding your breath anyway. Some habits never leave. Neither do some burdens. When your own life finally comes to an end, no grand monument marks the place. No songs are written. No painter captures your face. History forgets your name. But every peaceful royal dinner, every treaty signed over shared wine, every ordinary meal that ended with everyone still alive, was made possible because someone like you took the first bite. And perhaps that's how most of history was built. Not by the people sitting at the head of the table, but by the ones quietly making sure tomorrow could still be served.